This Kings fans once again left with a lot of questions. How do you look so good against the Cavs and then stumble against a team like the Bulls? Fortunately, our next guest, he joins us once a week. He has all the answers, as you know, Drapes. All-time Kings icon, one and only Jerry Reynolds. How are you today, JR?
Doing good. Yeah, by the way, I listened to you guys in your hot dog battle. I would say, Kyle, you don't need to eat 2 hot dogs just because you can.
Exactly.
No, I'm a big guy though, man.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
You're going to get bigger.
2 hot dogs. Come on, man. All right, I guess, and I will say this though, because when Whitey goes, and Jerry, you know how it is, he does partake in the pregame media meal too.
Right.
So the hot dog is really just like a snack later in the night.
It depends. If the main course is something that I'm gonna not enjoy that particular night, then the hot dog actually becomes dinner entree.
Huh? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, that's better. I'll give you a little pass then, Kyle.
Thank you.
Because I want you happy. You're best when you're happy.
You don't want me hangry, that's for sure.
Don't want you. No, don't want to see that side of you.
Coach, a lot of Kings fans aren't exactly happy with last night's result. I thought, in my humble opinion, more than anything, the Kings lost the game at the defensive end. They couldn't get stops, and all of a sudden they were in the half court. They're not great there. Was I right, or was that just the cold medicine talking?
No, you're 100% right, at least as far as I'm concerned. I mean, when you give up 73 and a half, you can't really feel like you're in a great position to win. You know, that means you got to score more than that, generally speaking. That's pretty hard to do. They were scoring every trip, and transition defense was really about as bad as I've seen all year, I thought. And Kobe White, you turned into Kobe Bryant almost.
Hey, Jerry, Zach LaVine, we know he's a tremendous scorer, but last night going against his former team, just 2 of 9, 8 points. What are you seeing with Zach as we try to figure out what's going on with him?
I just don't – I get the impression he's just not sure where his shots are supposed to come from, and honestly, I'm not sure where they are either. I think that's one thing as time goes, and this is really tough for the Coach Christie and his staff, because this is almost a whole new team here. Really a different getting Zach, LaRavia, and Markelle Fultz, and then, of course, playing Devin Carter. It's a new bunch as Valanciunas, and then with the injuries, and it just seems like he's a little bit of a fish out of water. And I think that's something that they've got to find a way to make sure that he's getting his, that he is involved. And he's, he's really good, moving without the ball to run him off screens, running high to low, things like that, and just catch him. If he can just catch with a live dribble, he's pretty good that way. But if he's kind of has to catch and then dribble, then he gets a little more vulnerable.
Yeah, well, Jerry, as you say, he looks like he feels like a fish out of water. Of all my fish, he's the one I got to make sure is in the water, right? I mean, he's really a big fish for me.
He's a big giant fish. Yeah, you got, yeah, exactly. That's what you got him for. Is he's a proven big time productive scorer, and he hasn't been as much as we've seen glimpses, but he's too good to be 8-9 shots type stuff. That goes to his teammates as well. Now, I do think when Sabonis comes back, and I don't know how they'll play, but they need to play through Domas a lot more, and I think he'll get, if it's kind of emphasized, we got to get Zach LaVine going. I think that's a good way to do it.
Hey, Jerry, it's been emotional 24, 48 hours for the Kings and their fans, obviously. As a former coach, front office guy that's been around the league, how do you explain having the game of the season against Cleveland and then losing that one last night? Is it just the NBA? Is it a sign of a bigger issue with this Kings team? Because after that Cleveland win, I'm like, we can beat anybody. And then we lose to Chicago, and I'm trying to figure out who we are right now.
Well, it to some degree it is the NBA. Every team has talent, and it's a make shot league. And we saw, like in the first quarter, you make 11 out of 17 threes. You think you're the world's best, and you look like it. And then you make 4 out of your next 22. Then that's the way. If you're not making shots. The other team is getting rebounds and getting in transition, and that's what happens, and that's kind of what went well against the Cavs. I mean, the Cavs are a better team than the Kings, but they weren't that particular night. Kings are better than the Bulls, but they weren't that particular night. Now, I'm not trying to give them a cop-out here but the fact that they beat the Celtics on the road and they beat the Cavs, well, every team can say that just about, that they've beaten some of the best. And they can also say, the best teams can also say they've lost to some of the worst teams, which they have over an 82-game schedule. I think, my feeling is if there's one thing that concerns me, it's just the fact that if there's a consistency with this team, it's consistency and not very good defense.
Yeah. I got a theory on that, Jer, and I agree with you completely, because as fans, we look at it and like, how can they look like they figured it out, then the next night they play so poorly. But when you have a team that is inconsistent shooting the ball, and they have been now for almost 2 full years, so we talk about small sample size, this is a big sample size. And then, as you said, you're inconsistent defensively, and then you have all the new players that are getting acclimated. The surprise would be if you were not inconsistent. So, I think the mistake we make as fans is looking at it and going, I don't know what's wrong with them. They should have figured it out. And it's not figuring it out or playing hard. It's when you can't defend consistently well and you can't shoot well, you're really prone to these, like, every game's like a box of chocolates. You just don't know what you're going to get.
No, and you've got, you got so many new players. It's tough enough for Coach Christie as an interim coach. You got that problem.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden now you got another team.
Yeah.
A very different team in addition to the one that you took over. And so, you make progress with the one team that you had first. Now you got another one. Now, talent-wise, I think this roster is more talented than the one that started this season, but it's just not fitting very well at times. And I think that's, I think that a lot of those problems could be solved if, you had more time together, but that's not possible. And, they're trying to work it out on the fly. I'm just, I guess I'm a little bit concerned. I'm just not sure how well this starting five with DeMar and Zach and Malik works, since they're basically, more scores than that's what they're great at. I mean, Malik's certainly doing a marvelous job trying to change his game to fit the team, but still, it's I think it's one of those things that probably with the talent on hand, if you had a couple weeks of camp to make some changes, maybe can convert the starting lineup a little bit, change it, and get your rotations down pat, I think this team would could be in a much better position than they currently are.
Jerry Reynolds joining the Drive, guys. Jerry, how would you assess just the position that Doug has been put in? And, I said it before, I think earlier this week. To me, it's hard to fully judge him on wins and losses, considering everything that's happened, losing assistants, that's not his staff. How do you accurately judge Doug as a potential head coach?
Well, one thing I'd say is I don't know that there's a coach in the league that could coach this team under the exact same circumstances and done one bit better. Now, I'm not saying there probably somebody could have won a game or two more, but there's some elite coaches that would have maybe done worse too. I think he's done a terrific job. I really do. I mean, and I think he'll get better. I mean, he's like I always just remember talking to Coach Carell about Doug and some of our walks and stuff. And of course, I'd known Doug, but he always said he thought that of all the players on those Kings team, he said, Doug's the one guy that actually seems to want to listen and learn and understand. Said the rest of them, most of the other guys that seemed to think they had all the answers. Sometimes they didn't know the questions.
Wasn't Coachy, bless his heart, wasn't he the guy that I think you told me he was just so focused on basketball, like he'd never get his oil changed in his car and stuff like that?
Yeah, he'd rent a car or lease a car and then drive it till it wouldn't go. Truly the absent-minded genius professor kind of guy. That was Coachy. I was going to say, I think I learned as much of the little things in basketball from him more than anybody else. He saw all the little stuff that make a difference. It's really remarkable. And like I say, I think that Coach Christie's got a lot of that, I know just from getting to know him even better during the broadcast kind of days. I've always said there were three people many times that during my 30 plus years with the franchise that I just knew would be, in my mind, good coaches. And that was Jim Les and Doug Christie and Carol Lawson.
3 for 3.
Yeah. Right.
And that's not to say others weren't or couldn't be, but those were the three I knew would be.
And I was like almost on that list, right, Jerry? I was close, but
well, you were fifth. Yeah. You were right behind LaSalle Thompson.
Okay.
And
all right, I'll take it. Yeah.
You were right behind the tank.
Jerry, real quick, everybody looks at, where this team is today. I also look at it today versus the future of Sacramento Kings basketball, the moves that, might be made this offseason, whether it's free agency or trades or anything like that. Can you just speak to, this belief that you need to bottom out in order to build a championship contender? Do you think this roster, this team can tinker, add some, subtract some, add a little salt and pepper here and build something, or is it a teardown job at this point?
Well, no, I think you've got enough assets that if you could make, a really good trade, I think what you need to do, either using the first round pick you have and an asset, a player, to get that one player that would be a starting caliber player that really is a player of need, which I think a long, lengthy athletic player that could play some fourth, kind of a 2 or 3 couple positions. But I think if you could get that guy, like a Naz Reid or somebody like that from Minnesota, not just throwing out a name, this team could jump 5, 6 games, 7 games, 8 games. So it's a fine line, but I always remember, like people forget that the Kings back when they were building, went from 44 to 55 by, adding Doug Christie and making a move. I think they had, that was the next year they went to 55, and then to get Christie, which really made the team go, besides just the improvement from within, that it won 44 to get to 55, and then the next year another additional move to make the roster fit. And that's kind of the problem they've got. It just doesn't quite fit. And, I was critical at the time of the trade. I said, I just thought, if you can't get exactly what you want for Fox, don't trade him. He's under contract for another year and a half, or was, and certainly not that LaVine's not a terrific talent, but my point is that it's a, you're trying to get your roster construction right, and that's as important as the overall talent. It's kind of like what Oklahoma City's done. They certainly traded to get Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, which was a terrific move. Of course, there again, Paul George, made another team better by leaving. But then again, then picking up guys like Hartenstein and Caruso to kind of
Yeah.
to make it work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know if they'll win a championship, but they certainly got a chance to. But it's a work in progress, and I think, and that's what this team is now. I don't, no question, the pressure is on them to do something, because if they think they can start next year with the exact same roster, I don't think it's going to work well enough. That's just my opinion. I mean, I'd love to be wrong. I'd love to be wrong. Just say, oh, Coach Christie, you take this exact same roster, and we'd like to see 50 wins out of it. Well, I don't think that's probably going to happen, but I do think there's enough assets to make a move, a trade that really does kind of bring it together a little better.
Jerry, I wanted to ask you about, DeMar DeRozan last night, 25,000 points, going back to that draft, 2009. Did you see him as a potential anything near what he's become? And, of course, that was Griffin, Hasheem to beat, Harden third, Tyreek goes to the Kings, Rubio fifth, Johnny Flynn sixth, good move, Minnesota, Steph seventh, Jordan Hill eighth, DeMar DeRozan ninth. And then there were some other good players taken after that, of course. Did you have any idea he was going to be anywhere near this good when he came out of UCLA?
No, I thought he was drafted about right.
Mm-hmm.
I thought most of those guys, I didn't think Johnny Flynn, but or Hasheem to beat. So, that was two I'm pretty confident weren't going to do it. But the other placement you could argue about. But no, I think you thought, well, this guy is going to find a way to be a starter and a long-time player in the league, but I wouldn't have predicted that he would have been even an all-star at that time, So that's a credit to him, though, and that's always the key, as we've talked about, is that the key is whoever you draft, they get better. Mm-hmm. They work to get better. And, Tyreek Evans should have been a many-time all-star. Yeah. But he didn't for work to get better like he should have, and of course he had some other issues, bigger issues, as opposed to, Steph Curry's become an all-time great, and as most of us know, the first couple of years they weren't even sure he's going to be able to hold his body together, but it did, and he worked hard and he's smart. So greatness is That's another issue, and I think with DeRozan, he certainly achieved scoring greatness. There's no doubt. He's a bucket getter.
Jerry Reynolds joined us. Jerry, we had Stacey King on our show yesterday. A great player out of Oklahoma, obviously won 3 championships with the Chicago Bulls, and he told us a story. He told me a story when I saw him at the game about his workout. He came in for a visit with Sacramento, wanted to actually play here. Ultimately, we wound up selecting Purvis Ellison. Do you remember, when Stacey came in, and tell me about that draft process when, you had Danny Ferry out there, Sean Elliott out there. Can you take me back then?
Here's the thing. We didn't, I know Bill Russell was the general manager then. We didn't bring Purvis or Sean Elliott or any of those guys in even. Did bring Stacey King in, and I don't think, as I recall, I'm not sure he worked out. He just visited. Mm-hmm. But Bill, I know, had made his mind up because he had told me, that he wanted Purvis, and but he didn't want anybody to know it. Which I thought strange. I said, we got the first pick. They can't.
Right. Ain't nothing they can do about it, right?
Everybody what we're going to do. They can't do anything about it. but anyway, and so anyway, that was kind of the backstory on that. But Purvis, of course, didn't work out. Yeah. I mean, he really was talented.
20-10 with Washington, right?
Yeah, he could have been a heck of a player. I'm telling you, Purvis, bless his heart, one of the more likable guys. But the biggest problem he had, he didn't really like playing basketball. Mm-hmm. That's kind of an issue, Kyle, in case you
you need to, right? Sort of like I don't like working with Whitey in radio, but
there you go. Right? Yeah, we spotted the problem.
Right. All right, Coach. Well, we appreciate it. By the way, if the Kings end up facing Phoenix in the 9-10 play-in, wouldn't that be a little scary in a one-game scenario against Kevin Durant?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want that to happen. I want them to play Dallas.
Okay.
Yes, we need to. I think we do. I mean, who knows? But I mean, I think if they play Dallas, they'll get to advance. And then it's one game.
Yeah.
And this team we know is capable because we've seen them do it. So I'm not going to say, oh boy, I think they can get Oklahoma City. They might beat Oklahoma City one game, but in a 7-game series, that's the thing about the NBA. 7-game series means the best team's going to win, barring injuries or something really strange.
So you're saying we need to bank on injuries if it comes to that?
We need injuries, yeah.
Ouch!
We need minor injuries to
right. Yeah.
2/3 of the players in the top 8.
There you go.
So that's all.
Yeah, that's all. That seems reasonable. We appreciate it as always. Thanks.
Well, guys, I enjoyed it, and hey, something good will happen. Next game up. That's all you can say. Next game up. Come on, Bucks. Bring your A game, and we'll bring ours. We'll see what happens.
Well, have a good weekend. We'll talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon.
All right, Jerry.
All right, take care.
Hey, man.
Jerry Reynolds, very forthright. Jerry Reynolds today.
Oh, he's keeping it real. He's keeping it honest. And that's what we want from him. Some great stories. I didn't tell the full story of Stacey King. He was saying he came in, talked to the Kings. Jerry Reynolds was there. Bill Russell was there, and he looked over, and Bill Russell was asleep. It was asleep. He said, I don't think I want to come to Sacramento. But like Jerry just said, they already had their mind. Like, it was going to be Purvis anyway.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
They didn't want to let anybody know.
They didn't want to let anybody know. A little smoke screen being thrown out there.
Oh, those were the days. We were so excited. The Kings got the #1 pick. Oh, boy. You got to convert wherever you're picking. Like I said, just look at that 2009 draft. I mean, Drew Holiday went in that draft. Where did he go?
Yeah.
Oh, the great Drew Holiday is a phenomenal player, right? He was 17.
Right. And that's the thing, Whitey. And, we talked yesterday about me and Jay. One exercise I want to do as we, inch closer towards the end of the season is how many best players were picked #1, top 5, lottery. Like you think about Jokic, 2nd round pick. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, he wasn't a #1 overall pick. There are a number of Steph Curry, a number of players who are leading their teams that aren't a #1 overall pick. So the tanking argument, it doesn't hold water as far as I'm concerned.
You know what I think is unfair is when a team passes on one of those guys. And I'm not talking about the Kings here. It applies to a lot of teams. I'm not trying to make excuses for the Kings, but we always say, oh, how stupid they didn't draft Steph Curry. But like Jerry said, no one had any idea DeMar DeRozan was going to be what he became.
Right.
He made that happen, and that's hard to predict.
Right. That's the intangibles, the stuff, the drive. Kobe Bryant. I mean, a lot of people thought he was going to be great, but nobody thought top 5 player, top 8 player, 10 player of all time because he had that inner drive. That stuff you can't measure out there.
Yeah. The Warriors, give them credit. They drafted, it's not the current regime, but they drafted Steph Curry. But when they made the trade for Bogut, they gave the Bucks the choice. You can have Monte Ellis or you can have Steph. It's up to you.
Yeah. It's interesting. I'm going down the list too of teams and the #1 overall pick. Orlando, their best player is the #1 overall pick, Paolo Banchero. And I'm on the Eastern Conference right now. Now I'm going to go to the West. Wembanyama. Yes. LeBron. Yes. Outside of that, Whitey, Ant Edwards. So that's 4. Outside of that, you got 26 other teams whose best player was not a #1 overall pick. In the case of Jokic, a 2nd round pick. And so we always said it here. Wherever you're picking, just get the damn pick right. Just hit on the pick and you'll be fine.
Yeah, you look at, and I know they're kind of past their primes, but they're still productive. The Clippers, you got Harden, who was drafted 3rd, and then